He is pansexual or something. I don't know.
Welcome to Spit Take Podcast. My name is Sam. Make sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. And joining me as always is Adam and Rick. What's up, Adam?
Not too much. I'm tired of shoveling snow. I'm done with it. It's going to snow again tonight, and I'm not going to do it tomorrow. But we have an awesome show today. First thing we're going to cover, as always, is some news. We've got a small, short little review about a documentary on Netflix. We're going to be talking about Ghostbusters, Godzilla vs. Kong. There's a new trailer out for a movie called Abigail. And we'll be talking about the new Marvel TV show, Echo. And after that, we're going to have a spirited debate about Star Wars. It's not really going to be a debate because we all feel the same. But it will be fun to talk about. And we have a special guest joining us, and Rick's going to tell you a little bit more about him.
Hey, it's Rick, the Otter Assassin. I don't have to worry much about the snow because I do not leave the house, and I pretty much stay in my basement. And I'm pretty addicted to Sons of the Forest right now. Thanks, Adam.
You're welcome.
That's pretty much all I do. Today we got Kris. I didn't even ask how you wanted to be introduced. Sorry about that. Kris, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know I've met you probably I've known you for like 13, 14 years now. I've known you for a long time.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I think it was like 2010, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
When we met. Yeah.
At,
Fort Sam in San Antonio.
Right.
You know, it's pretty awesome that we've kept in touch, this whole time. I mean, I've had social media nuked, and then we still find each other. So
yeah, Kris is a big libertarian like me. And we tend to speak out against politicians, and that's what happens. I'm a little more safe. But I use fake accounts to troll, and I'm not going to tell you what accounts those are. But Kris, he's really into the independence comic scene, Comicsgate, all that stuff. I'm pretty ignorant about it. I think Sam and Adam pretty ignorant about it. Kris, can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, really it's just independent comics nowadays are it's a lot easier to make them than it was, say, 20 years ago. You can be your own publisher, you can crowdfund, there's so many different avenues to getting your product out there to people. The direct to sales market is so much better than having the traditional comics, like your Marvel, DC, Image, all that. They're selling their books to a distributor, and then the distributor is selling it to the retailer, and the retailer is selling it to you. And lately we've seen not only quality and story go way down into the toilet, but also quality in the art, quality in the actual physical books, whether it be the paper or ink still being wet, or all kinds of things. And the indie market is booming because of that. Because it's just people wanting to put really fun stories, give that escapism that everybody, really needs. I mean, honestly, just that time to decompress. It's a comic book. So, comics you read in 30 minutes, an hour, something like that. Just, it's a great hobby to have. The secondary market on indie comics is also pretty good. You can make a little bit of money on the side, buy, sell, trade type stuff. So yeah, and I'm working on my own book, and it will launch on fundmycomic.com on February 16th. The book is called Nano 13, and it is about a group of people that were slaves to an alien race, and they gain their freedom and become freedom fighters. end up with superpowers, like tech-oriented superpowers, and fighting aliens.
That's awesome.
It sounds really cool. Yeah, we'll make sure we drop your link into the comments if anybody wants to go check out his comics. But awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah,
I do have some things to say about that, though. Like, especially looking at what comics has become. I kind of stopped reading comics, like mainstream comics, a while ago, especially when Punisher started admitting his white guilt. And that kind of started turning me off of comics, because I want to see Punisher murder people, not really slap me across the face with a message. Listen, I'm against slavery. I was against the whole, slavery to begin with and everything. But that's not quite what I read.
He was there when slavery started. And from the beginning, he
is
said no.
that old. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely not.
Hey,
Rick
there's
was
still slavery in the world. But
if Rick had been at that play, Lincoln would still be around.
I think Jim Crow's evil, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I've read a history book. I'm not reading a comic book to learn more about it.
Right, Rick with a hot take, man. Hot takes from Rick today.
Well,
Loving it.
If you're a big fan of the Punisher back when he was the Punisher, Mike Baron, who is probably the definitive Punisher writer back in the day, he now does indie comics. And he has a book that came out earlier this year called Private American. And he said that his idea was, with everything going on the border right now, what would the Punisher do if he was writing the Punisher still? He would go down to the border. So he wrote a book about a Cuban immigrant that joins the U.S. military, gets out, honorable service, and decides to go do something about stuff down on the border. And it is fantastic. It's got all the violence that you want out of a Punisher book, but it's a brand new character. Mike Baron is one of the greatest writers in comics, like, of all time. And,
hell yeah.
And he's got several other books as well, but just look up Mike Baron and, check out his catalog. And I would definitely suggest Private American.
You're going to have to shoot me the link on that. See, I told you this guy knows his shit.
Nobody was questioning it.
Shut up. You were saying just beforehand, this guy's full of shit.
Never did I question.
You were talking about your white guilt.
Yeah, well, obviously.
I don't have white guilt. Let's be honest.
I put a black comic book character behind me to offset.
That's Eric July's character.
That is Isom.
Yeah.
And I got Yaira over here.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of Eric July, by the way. Still hasn't accepted my friend request on Facebook, that bastard. Young Rippa. But I could sit and listen to him talk all day.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He lives just a couple hours north of me. And, I've run into him a few times at different events, especially running around the libertarian sphere. We run a lot of the same circles.
And I do want people to know we are not particularly a political show.
We're not a political show at all.
No. It just so happens that
this is how they connect.
I fucking hate politicians.
Which I think a lot of our listeners can agree with. I don't think anybody really likes politicians right now in any form.
I don't think a lot of politicians' wives and husbands really like them that much either.
No, probably not.
Probably because they're doing cocaine and hookers and shit. So
that's right.
On some island somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's a good segue into our first topic, or our first news thing. It's not really news. I'm just going to do a quick talk about. Me and my wife binge watched that new World War II documentary on Netflix last week. It's called World War II from the Front Lines. And the whole thing is, so it's narrated by John Boyega. The entire show is all actual footage from World War II. So everything that they're showing is not reenactments. It's actual footage that was remastered and colorized. And the show blew my mind. It was about 6 episodes, an hour each. And I learned a lot that I didn't know about World War II from this. Seeing real footage brought a lot of things home and gave you a lot more emotion than just kind of watching some stuff on the History Channel with little clips here and there. Like they had video of what was it, when they were taking the little German boys away from their mothers to start, the new Aryan race and everything, and basically raising them to be Hitler youths. But they're showing video of the Nazis tearing them away from their mothers and the mothers crying and stuff. There were some like legitimately hard things to watch in there, just in general. But it was very interesting. I highly recommend, if you were interested in watching that kind of stuff, to check it out. It was crazy. It was crazy. I'm not gonna lie. I probably cried 3 or 4 times watching this documentary. Just in some of these like really dark things that they went through, and they don't spend a lot of time really talking about the Holocaust or the concentration camps that much. It's more just like strictly about the war and the fighting. There is a little bit obviously that ties in with the Holocaust, especially in Warsaw. And they had some of the survivors and stuff talking about it. And I think this was old footage because these guys look like they were maybe in their 70s or 80s. So I think this was just old footage from, of interviews that have been done in the past. But it was really powerful stuff. And I mean, there were you're sitting there watching, them talk about the Nazis and like, oh, they're fucking terrible people. And then they start going into talking about things that England was doing, things the US was doing that were equally as bad during this war. The one in particular that I'm thinking of was they were doing a bombing run. I can't remember what the town was, so they were doing a bombing run there. They were attacking civilians. This was England attacking civilians, and they were hitting them because they wanted to try to show force. They're hitting them with this, like they kill a bunch of people. All the survivors go into this monastery, and they're in there, and there's 60,000. Or no, I'm sorry, it wasn't a monastery; it was a post office. There's 60,000 people in here, right? And they get the order to go drop a bomb on it, and they do it. And I had never heard that story before, but they killed 60,000 civilians with one bombing run. And you hear these kinds of things, and you're like, I had no idea. Like, obviously they don't teach you that in school. We're the good guys, right? But the whole documentary has a really amazing stories, things that just kind of blow your mind. They didn't spend a lot of time on Normandy. They kind of built it up and then spent like 5 minutes on Normandy and then moved on. Some of the footage from Normandy was insane because you're just watching soldiers drop on the beach. But it was really cool. I highly recommend checking it out.
Heck yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
World War II stuff
what's it
is
called?
always interesting.
It's called World War II from the front lines. And again, it's all frontline footage. It's so it's just incredible because I've never seen anything like that before. And I'm not a big like war documentary kind of person. Like I'm not super into watching the History Channel or anything like that. This one really like hit me hard. So,
well, World War II is always interesting, though. Like,
yes.
For some reason, World War II has the best documentaries. And I think it feels like more people are interested in World War II than any other war. It seems to have so many layers to it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a Holocaust museum in town here. I know you didn't talk about the Holocaust, but there was a woman that was in the Holocaust. She was a twin when she was 10 who owned the museum here, and she was tested on she had medications tested on her by Bayer and all the medications
Goebbels, all them, yeah.
They still have today, pharmaceutical companies. And her and her twin, when she was 10 years old, and it is such a heartbreaking story, but it's very interesting. She like moved here, and she learned English watching soap operas. Coincidentally, she married a pharmacist here. But she ended up becoming a semi-celebrity, and she ended up forgiving Dr. Maglia and the Nazis, and the Jewish people are really mad at her for it. But there is so many stories from all sides of World War II, whether it be the Americans, whether it be the Japanese, whether it be the Italians, they're the Russians, because it was the Russians that came in and saved her. There's like so many layers of World War II that like you're always hearing new stories about it every day.
Yeah. Well, and like in this one at the end, they finally take Berlin. Hitler kills himself. We all know that. And it's showing footage of like the soldiers being received by like some of the locals who are happy to get rid of the Nazis and stuff. And they show like a couple of different cities across, Europe that are just celebrating and like, hanging out with the American troops. And it's really like a happy ending kind of thing that they give you at the end of it, which like was just so great. There's one story in there that, it was really interesting about a woman being trapped in a building with some other Jews. And, they had attached, the Nazis had attached a bomb. This was at the end of the war. They're like, they're coming, just kill them all. They attached a bomb. It started raining. The bomb didn't go off. And these Americans hear that there's people trapped in there. So they go driving over there in their Jeeps as fast as they can. They open the door, they save these people. They get them out of there. The war is basically over at this point. This was like the last day of the war. And this woman who, was in there, who was telling the story, and the GI that came and saved her, they ended up getting married and everything. And it's just like those beautiful stories that come out of this. And you're just like, and that was one of the moments that I cried, was them telling the story. Blew my mind. It was, it was just so emotionally powerful. So yeah, definitely go see it if you have a chance.
Yeah, I think one of the things about World War II that, why it's not only so interesting, but why there's so much information about it is because there was so many changes in technology that came all at once. I mean, there was radio and like fully mechanized military,
submarines,
and submarines, and things like that. And so it was this time where the old world was now in the past, and this was, this is everything new. And just so much of it was documented. So many stories, personal letters, all kinds of things were documented. Whereas, say, take World War I, for instance, there's footage, and of course, there's like personal letters and things like that. But the information recorded isn't as massive as World War II was.
Right.
And so it's just this giant wealth of knowledge, that keeps it
was going. Yeah, it was essentially the first war that was really televised in any way, because they were playing, footage in the movies before the movies started playing. They did that. I think they did a little bit during World War I, but it wasn't nearly the coverage. And Vietnam was the first like live television, broadcasting of a war. And I think that was one of the appeals of World War II. And I mean, it was so massive. I guess I never really clicked in my head how many people really died in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
When they're talking about, we bombed a building with 60,000 people in it. Like, that's a lot of death right there in one bombing run. And you think this war went on for 5 years of like this kind of stuff happening. I mean, it was, and it's just the scale of it is incredible. And as you're hearing the stories of these battles and how many people die, and you're really starting to understand how the scale of these battles were, it's nothing like what we went through when we were over there, No.
I mean,
then you wonder why I hate politicians.
That I think another couple of reasons why it's so interesting to so many people is we're not that far generationally off. Oh, did we lose Adam?
Nope, I'm still here.
All right. So we're not that far generationally away from that war. So both my grandfathers fought in World War II. They never really talked about it. One of my grandfathers wrote a like memoir sort of thing that I haven't gotten to read yet, but talked about, his experience in the war. He was over in the Pacific. My other grandfather was flew and was like a belly gunner on a bomber in the European front. And it changed so many geographic lines as well. It changed just the way people thought about things, because the beginning of the war, you had people bringing horses to fight tanks and very quickly learning that didn't work. Mm-hmm. So there's just so many, like y'all said, so many things that changed about the way that war is done in that war, that it's a case study on evolution.
Mm-hmm. Well, and for me, I didn't have anybody fight in the war, but my family was still living in Germany when Hitler took power. My grandma, her brother, and their parents, obviously, they were all living there, and they, Hitler took power. I think a few years later, they were like, "Yep, we fuck this guy, we're out of here," and that's when they headed to America. Mm-hmm. But they were there; they saw everything happening. They still had family back there. They lived through those atrocities. I never really talked to them or anything, but I'm sorry, they're relatives. I didn't really know. So, but in any case, I mean, it's just, there's so many great stories, I think, from that time. It was great and sad stories, but very powerful stuff. And check it out. Again, World War II from the front lines.
I always wonder if, say you go back to the Roman Republic, if there was like a generation of people, that were the generation after the Punic Wars, that looks back like, oh, my grandfather fought in the Punic Wars, and that's like the topic of discussion.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure there absolutely was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the human experience, Mm-hmm. I mean, like, as awful as war is, it's reality, and every generation, has some sort of definitive wartime something going on as far back as time goes,
Mm-hmm. I think the way people act now is, I mean, there's a way I wanted to say this, but it wasn't so woke. But for the most part, the way people act now is the way people have always acted, just different language.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? There's people that are against war. There are people that are for war. There are people that carry on traditions. I think, there are people that joke about, make dirty jokes and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
people don't really change throughout history. You know what like, there are cave drawings of dirty jokes and stuff like that. I mean, so people don't really change. I think the way it's done, the language changes.
Yeah, the amount of penis carvings on Hadrian's Wall that the Romans did.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I was thinking about that and thinking about the Roman graffiti of so-and-so, fuck so-and-so here.
Oh, yeah. And there was actually recently a tablet. Well, I say a tablet. It was a rock that had a crude carving in it, dug up in England. And what it said was this guy's name, which I can't remember exactly what it was, but it said this guy, we'll say Rick. Rick is a poop, and then it had a carving of a penis on it.
See, awesome. we knew Rick was old. We already said he was there for the Civil War.
I got a lot of gray in this beard.
Well, Rick's drawn a lot of dicks in his time.
I parted the sea.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to touch on that. We can move on to the next thing.
subject.
Yeah, you beat me to it, I guess. I don't know what the point of that was, but sure.
It's a next subject.
Ghostbusters and Godzilla vs Kong got new release dates. They both got pushed up a week. I was reading about it earlier. It looks like it's just to compete in the spring market. No real significant reason why they were moved up. It doesn't look like they have that much they're competing against. I was reading there's some new Mark Wahlberg movie coming out that people aren't expecting to do that well. It's some kind of biography. I'll probably learn more about that later. But either way, I'm excited to have those two movies move up a week and bring me a week closer to watching them.
No.
I think those are probably the two movies I want to see this year. Like
2 of 3. Don't forget Deadpool.
Other than Deadpool, those are the two top movies I want to see. Ghostbusters has everybody but Egon coming back, and Godzilla and Kong. I mean, that's all I need.
Yeah. Godzilla and Kong looks like they're like just buddies now or something, but just that final scene in the teaser trailer they gave us of the two of them just running into battle. I'm there for it. I'm ready for it. Can't wait.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for Sam Jackson to show up and in an end credit scene and say we need you for the Avengers Initiative. I'm looking forward to
I
it.
think he already died.
Yeah, he died.
Well, that was in the 70s in Skull Island.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And as we're learning from Monarch, time doesn't always mean everything.
That's true.
Yep.
No spoilers.
What is the Hollow Earth? The
Hollow Earth, where time moves differently, which was never brought up until Monarch. The whole thing they did in Godzilla vs Kong. Yep. Well, I don't think that's that much of a spoiler, but there is a time dilation down there that we learn about. And I think they're just really trying to expand on that whole thing with the Hollow Earth that they mentioned in Godzilla vs. Kong and they briefly visited. I actually like what they've been doing with it because they're just exploring basically a whole new world. I think the last episode came out yesterday and I haven't watched it yet.
By the way, after the discussion last week about Godzilla -1 still better than the whole MonsterVerse. But I did watch a lot of Godzilla last week, just because it's been a while, and I haven't sat down and watched the whole MonsterVerse like in a row. Godzilla 2014 was trash. The only good thing about it was Godzilla atomic puking down the monster's throat. That's it. But 2019 Godzilla was pretty good.
I think they figured out with that first one that people just want to see Godzilla doing Godzilla stuff. There was too much human story in the first one. And
well, the thing is though, the human story wasn't good.
Right.
They were just moving the plot along.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the human story in Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monster was better. The Kong story in Godzilla vs. Kong was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, the human story in that wasn't that great.
So I liked in the 2014, I did like, how the humans are following him along. It was still kind of an unknown thing because this was it was new Godzilla. This wasn't like a continuation from, the 1950s and stuff. This was brand new. Right. And they were like, hey, we don't know what this is. He's not. And Monarch hasn't made themselves public yet at this point. So they don't know. They're just following around trying to do what they can to stop him. Because they think he's the bad guy, obviously. Now, here's where I do take issue with some of the human story is like myself, Rick, and Chris being veterans. And Sam could probably figure this out, too, without being a veteran. You don't just move around and jump onto different units at will.
Right.
I mean,
Aaron Taylor.
No.
You can't just do that.
He was a warrant officer. And he wasn't. He was like a lieutenant.
Yeah.
It was Aaron Taylor Johnson's just like, he sees a group, oh, I'll jump in with you guys. Oh, now I'm a paratrooper. Now I'm this. Now I'm demolition. Like,
And
it did. That's the only part.
Fort Polk and got in trouble. So I actually did that and got in trouble.
I went back in the wrong vehicle one time and got in trouble. That was it. I was still in my same unit, just in the wrong vehicle. And,
I was doing
there's like, hey, come along
in Fort Polk, doing in the box, doing a Op4 exercise, basically war games, and I was supposed to stand guard with somebody, and I thought my team was running off, but it was somebody else's team, and I went running off with them. So I was off with some people I didn't even know.
That sounds like a very Rick thing to do.
It does. I think
we cleared a building, and they're like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I don't know." And we killed a bunch of people. And then I got in trouble.
Mission accomplished, right?
But if you haven't seen Godzilla -1, like, it does not need Godzilla to be a good movie, but Godzilla fucking makes it that much better of a movie, and it's so much better than all of MonsterVerse. But I do love the MonsterVerse because I do love the whole idea of the shared universe of monsters. But if they do want a MonsterVerse, Mothra needs her own movie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree that Mothra needs a separate film, because Mothra has always been a very complex character. You know, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Mothra isn't just some moth. Like, there's a whole lot going on there, and I would actually love to see a standalone Mothra movie. Like that would be awesome. I've always been a big fan of Rodan, and you know, I think that it would be great to have some sort of Rodan film too.
Yeah, it'd be great if they just expanded a little bit and did some different monsters and stuff.
Well, you know, the thing is like Hollywood, and we'll say that the MCU kind of started this whole shared universe thing,
right?
And some have been tried and actually, with the exception of Godzilla, I think all of them that have tried have eventually failed. You know, but I think just focusing on like good storytelling and remember that it's escapism. Like, it doesn't have to make your gears turn. I want to see Godzilla do Godzilla stuff, man. You know, and that's what they deliver on for sure. You know, I back when Universal was talking about doing a MonsterVerse, you know, with the classic monsters.
Oh yeah.
I got super excited because, man, I love classic monsters. And then
the Mummy fucked it up.
Yeah, and it was the first one in the franchise. I was like, how in the world? Like, how do you make a Tom Cruise movie bomb?
Right?
You know, that's crazy.
Well, how far did he run in that movie? That's the question. Because we all know the further he runs, the better the movie performs.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, and I never actually saw that Mummy movie with Tom Cruise. And I wondered, did we hold it up against the 1999 cinematic masterpiece, The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser?
See, and to me, if they were going to make a MonsterVerse, they already had material they could have drawn from. They could have drawn from the Brendan Fraser film. There was rumors that they were going to do Dracula. Was it Dracula Untold? Was going to be the canon Dracula?
Oh, that'd be cool.
Or whatever. You know, I mean, there was that. There's, you know, but to me, it's so easy. It's really easy to make a Mummy movie or a Dracula movie or, you know, any of those classic monsters, because those stories are timeless. You know,
right. Well, in the 1999 cinematic masterpiece, The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser, was absolutely amazing. I love that movie. I've watched that one on repeat. Brendan Fraser winning the Oscar last year. I was like, you deserve that for the the 1999 cinematic masterpiece, The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser.
Hell yeah.
I just want to point out
Man.
that is it is one of the greatest movies, and you know, I don't think it was as well received, but like you go back and watch it, it holds up. Like it was a good movie.
It is
Yeah.
They did
fantastic.
It was good.
Yeah, the
And
second
just
one
for
wasn't
being
bad.
Brendan Fraser, because he's a national sweetheart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's still at that time. He was still popular from being Encino Man.
Yep.
Yes.
Pauly Shore.
Mhm.
Yep. And
Yeah.
if you guys are
So-
into, I'm gonna plug more indie comic creators. If you guys are into classic monsters, you know, Frankenstein and stuff like that, look up Graham Nolan. He is the co-creator of Bane, the Batman villain. He does independent comics now at Compass Comics, and he has an entire monster verse in his canon that has
That's cool.
has Frankenstein and some cryptids like the Shanu and what else? There's Alien Alamo and Monster Island is one of his more popular books. So yeah,
Nice.
Graham Nolan, co-creator of Bane.
Cool. Yeah. Well, and one last thing I'll talk about Monsterverse. Do you guys remember the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
It was so bad. Sean Connery quit acting because of that movie.
Yeah. So I mean, even that.
That's not even a joke. He
went
did.
out on a
He
high
did.
note. He went out on a high note.
Oh, you're talking about the voice acting. He did one movie. I don't remember what the movie was, but he did voice act a dog or something.
You know, and I
Oh
was
my
never a fan of the comics. It was just like I was like, why are you guys making a movie out of this?
I never read the comics. I was, I think, probably 10 years old when this movie came out. And just like, again, like we've talked about just seeing bad movies as kids where you shouldn't know they're bad movies. You should probably still enjoy them a little bit, but it's so bad you just can't.
Yeah,
I remember trying to watch it several times and like thinking I should be enjoying this, and
You
I'm
just don't.
not, and I can't. I don't know why I'm not, but it's just not enjoyable.
It's not. It's not.
I'm with you.
Okay, so I guess I'm the only one here that actually enjoyed it because it was bad.
You are. If you enjoyed it, then yes, you are.
I would still go
He
back and
enjoyed
rewatch
Mario.
that movie.
The
Mario
original
was good.
90s Mario.
That one, no, that wasn't good, but I enjoyed it. I had fun.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that
In
was the great
fairness-
part about it.
Yeah.
That's
In
what
fairness,
I'm looking for.
In fairness, he made the point that if it was not called Super Mario, it would have been a halfway
Still be a
decent movie.
terrible movie.
Halfway decent.
Well,
No, it'd still be terrible.
I don't even think I
Yeah.
said halfway decent. I think
All
I
right,
might have said it would be okay.
I retract my statement.
All of us got a chance to see the Abigail trailer, the vampire ballerina. Adam was
Why
the
did you
one
say it like
pointed-
that?
Adam was the one
The vampire ballerina.
because I'm hearing my voice for the first time in these headphones and I'm trying to get used to it. It's so weird.
You are yelling a little bit.
So here's my thing. This trailer was awesome. Adam's the one that pointed this out. Female vampires. No one talks about this. Female vampires in general are the creepiest monster of all monsters. There was a kind of a scary movie, but it was a kid's scary movie when I was little, even though the male vampire picked the little girl up and called the little girl a bitch. In the movie, it was called Monster Squad. It had the Coreys in it, or one of the Coreys.
Yeah.
But there was, if you look it up, the female vampires from Monster Squad are the creepiest thing in the world. For some reason, women vampires, I don't know why I say females, but vampire bitches are the worst.
It's because vampires, like, by nature are seductive, and we're guys.
That's true.
So female vampires are gonna be scary as shit. My favorite vampire movie of all time is Fright Night, and at
That's
the
a
end,
good one.
at the end, his girl gets turned, and she gets this like grotesque, like giant teeth like this, and it's wild. And then in the second Fright Night movie, it's the vampire from the first one. It's his sister. I don't know how that works, but whatever.
I didn't see the second one.
And yeah, it's like super creepy, and I mean, yeah,
They did a good job with it. Christopher Mintz-Plasse was in that movie. But the trailer...
This one's not so seductive.
No. Well, no. So this trailer, the reason it kind of caught my eye was, at first I didn't know it was about vampires or anything. It was just a little girl as a ballerina. And I think it was on Facebook, and they had a caption like, like little girls are evil or something like that, or children are evil, something like that. So I'm like, okay, something's up with this girl. I'm watching the trailer. It's going through. Girl gets kidnapped by these people. She's stuck in this room. She has this conversation. We're a minute into this trailer now, and all of a sudden she's like, "I'm sorry that you're going to die," or something like that.
I'm sorry about what's going to happen to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and they blatantly say in the trailer, like, she's a vampire. And when her face turns and they show her vampire form, it brought me back to 30 Days of Night. It was very reminiscent of those vampires. But the trailer was cool because it shows them, like, basically these people are bad people who are trying to kidnap her and ransom her. And now the tables have turned, and she's going around murdering them. She's trapped them in the house and everything. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun for anybody who's kind of a horror fan. It's by the same people that did You're Next, which was a really good movie too. And there was a couple of people in the movie, a couple of the actors that at first I didn't think I really knew anybody in it. And then I looked at a couple of them, and I've definitely seen some of their work before. But it looks like it's a lot of fun. And I mean, even one guy's like, he's like, I hate ballerinas and stuff like that. Like, it's a little cheesy.
I hate ballet.
I hate ballet. Yeah, that's what it was. I hate ballet. Yeah. It looks like it's a little cheesy, but you know what? It's going to have some like dark moments in it. I think there's a part where she's dancing in people's blood. I don't know. It's going to be, it looks like fun.
So that's what I want to see. Vampires have to be monsters. Like, there was too long of a period where we got vampires that were, you had sparkly vampires and you had Anne Rice vampires. No. They are monsters. Like, make me afraid of this creature,
Yeah. So who's the actor in that looks like buff Elon Musk?
Kevin Durant.
Okay. Because the first look that I got was just a quick pan over his face, and I was like, "Is that fucking Elon Musk?"
Dude, I thought the same thing when I saw him. I was like, "Is that Elon Musk in this movie?" I was like, "What the fuck is happening here?"
But little girl vampires, just as creepy. Kirsten Dunst, Interview with a Vampire, fantastic.
Yeah,
and she is one of my favorite vampires of all time. And Abigail, she looks scary. This movie does look scary, and it looks like it does justice to the vampire genre. Well, and that's why I kind of like this trailer. It looked bloody, it looked violent, it looked gory, and it was the vampire was mischievous, the way you want a little girl vampire to be.
Right. Well, in this movie, like I said, I didn't recognize people right off the bat watching this trailer, but as I went through it, so Kevin Durant was one of them, and he's done some really good movies. He was the Blob in X-Men Origins. Okay, I'm not saying that was a good movie. That was a bad example to start with. But he was the Blob in that movie. He was also in the Robin Hood movie with Russell Crowe, which I actually thought was pretty decent.
Smoking Aces, man.
Smoking Aces, yeah. And then the other big one for me was Catherine Newton, who was Claire Novak in Supernatural. She was Cassie Lang in Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania.
Thank you. It was Supernatural that I knew her from. I was trying to place her face the entire time, and it was driving me insane. Thank you.
She was Castiel's daughter. Well, not his daughter, but you know what I mean, like his
the human's daughter.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And she played a pretty prominent character in the show later on, but
she was great. Yeah.
She is, and she was one that I had to look at IMDb, and then I was like, okay, because I didn't recognize her at first either. But the movie looks like it's a lot of fun. I'm gonna go see it.
Yeah, I'll go watch that. Absolutely.
We should have a date night. We should go together.
Might as well. My wife won't go watch it. I can't talk.
He's having a stroke. Yeah, no, my wife won't go watch it either. So, but no, it does look fun. It randomly popped up on my Facebook, and I was like, I want to talk about this. But I think we're good. We can move on to the last thing, which is the new Marvel show that's out, Echo. And do we care?
I mean, the thing is like I haven't watched it. I don't plan on watching it. I'm already hearing, of course, all of the, stunning and brave and blah blah blah. Like, it's the same garbage, and I mean, I just can't. I can't do it, man. It's so awful. It's not even. It's not even Marvel anymore. Like they have what 80 years of source material, and they're like, we're gonna take this character that was created yesterday, and we're gonna make a TV show about her. Oh, and by the way, it's all gonna be about like her checkbox identity and everything. It's not gonna be about anything else about. I mean,
yeah.
The thing is all these people, she's deaf or whatever. Okay, well, like Daredevil is blind. They don't make they don't make everything about how Daredevil is blind. They make it about how cool he is. I can't say it.
They do it more with Daredevil, but Hawkeye's deaf.
Yes.
Hawkeye's deaf, and you didn't know, watching all of the Avengers, you don't know he's deaf. Of course, I personally think they might have forgotten about that little fact through all those movies.
Well, they didn't even bring it up to the show.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But I mean, even in the comics, they rarely mention it. Mm-hmm. Like the one thing everybody goes back to is when he runs into Deadpool pulls his mask up so he can read his lips. Like that. Yeah. That's the one thing everybody brings up. But really, they don't focus on Hawkeye being deaf. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why your disability or your race or your ethnicity, your background, any of that stuff has to be front and center when it should be what you're doing is the main point.
Well, that's what all the fans have been saying for years. It's ever since this stuff crept into the comics and is now trickled up into the movies and the TV is like, why in the world? Because I mean, there have been plenty of characters that had like there's been gay characters. There's been
North Star.
There's been North Star. There's been characters with disabilities. But the thing is none of that is at the forefront. It's always like they're
it's not
hero.
Their identity,
right? They're a hero doing hero shit, and then this is just like okay, whatever, man. It's ugh.
Well, here's my thing. I don't really give a shit about that. The thing that turned me out. Here's my thing. I can't just stop caring about the Marvel Universe after the third Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm just not excited anymore. Loki Season 2 came out, and that has nothing to do with any of all that stuff you're talking about. I just don't care because I'm just not excited about comic or like these mainstream superhero movies anymore. Even though we watched Aquaman 2, me and Adam watched it and we really liked it. But Echo may or may not be good. I did like the Hawkeye show. I didn't hate it. It wasn't great. Echo was in it. But like Kris said, why is that the character you're making a show about? Kingpin's gonna be in it. Cool. I'll check it out. If it's not good, I'm probably not gonna watch the whole thing. I know I tried watching Secret Invasion. I didn't watch the whole thing because it was terrible. And that's the thing. Like, I think after She-Hulk, I watched She-Hulk all the way through, and that last episode was such a clusterfuck that I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
That last episode of She-Hulk, like, She-Hulk's was always a good comic book character, mainstay of the Avengers. She was in the Fantastic Four. She was kind of like Deadpool, where she like talked to the audience, broke the fourth wall. She was funny. She was smart. She always stayed in character as a lawyer and stuff or always stayed in her Hulk state as a lawyer and stuff like that. And they made the show, and they made it for certain people. And there were parts of it that I thought were good, but then that last episode was just like, who was this for? Because the people it was for, my wife did not give a shit about the show. I cared more about the show than my wife did. And that last episode just like didn't make any sense. And people who like the Mary Sue website, which I do read every once in a while, just see what they're saying. We're like, well, that's how it is in the comics. It's like, no, because the comic makes it make sense. That didn't make sense. I had no idea what they were talking about. And so after that, I was just like, I'm done with it.
So many of these directors now are going and telling the actors and actresses, do not go read the source material. Yep. Which means that like they're not making She-Hulk or even Echo. They're making whatever they want and slapping the name of that character on there. I know there was like a big controversy when the Peacemaker show was about to come out, and apparently like it was all over the place that John Cena was told not to read any source material, and sure enough, Peacemaker is nothing like Peacemaker in the comics. And I think comic book fans have been tired of it for a while and have moved on. And the cinema fans, I think, are pretty fed up with it and are just looking for, like, hey, what am I going to do? What am I going to watch next? Because it's not going to be this garbage.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I loved Peacemaker. I thought it was an awesome show. I never read any comics containing Peacemaker except for the occasional Suicide Squad one. I just thought it was a really well told story, and it was a lot of fun. And really, just Vigilante was the best character in that show for sure.
Great in it.
No. And I know he's pretty far removed from what he was in the comics, but I thought what they did with it was really fun. As far as Echo goes, I don't really know the character that well, except for what I saw in Hawkeye. I don't know. Was she a comic book character?
Yeah. She actually has. The thing is, what's irritating is that they focus so much on her identity, like her race and her disability and things like that, because she actually does have an interesting backstory where she's the daughter of a mobster that gets knocked off by the Kingpin. Kingpin adopts her, but she has no idea that Kingpin, is the guy that killed her family and everything. And then she finds out later on, and she shoots his eye out. And so it's a really, really interesting and good origin story, but the character falls flat because they focus on the wrong things.
Right. Well, and if there's any reason I'm going to watch this show, it's to watch Vincent D'Onofrio play the Kingpin.
Yeah,
because he did such a good job. He did such a good job in Daredevil, and I think that like if there was a Kingpin show, I would watch it 100%. Vincent D'Onofrio is
Daredevil coming back.
Yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio is just such an amazing actor, and he has been since Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
even in Men in Black, playing Edgar, he was awesome in that. Yeah, just walking around with his skin hanging off.
Dude, he was so good. That's his best work, in my opinion.
You know how
Edgar? Holy
you know how
crap.
long? You know how long it took me to realize that was Vincent D'Onofrio? Like well past probably 70, 80 viewings of this movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, and I think when I was a kid, I didn't know him as well because I had never, I didn't see Full Metal Jacket when I was 10 years old when the movie came out. Mm-hmm. But when I realized, I was like, holy shit. But he is such a good actor, and he's done so many amazing parts, and he just played the Kingpin so well that that if I watch Echo, it's because of that. And when I watch the trailer, it is by far the reason that I want to watch the show.
But I wonder how much he really is in Echo.
Correct.
Is he the main villain, or is he just...
Is he a flashback? Is he there a little bit? Yeah, I gotcha.
Because I think at the end of in Hawkeye, wasn't it like...
She shot him or something? I don't know.
Shot him? Was he alive? Did he go blind?
Yeah, that's the whole thing in the comic books where she shoots him in the eye.
He goes blind or something?
He gets an eye patch.
He gets an eye patch?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of just Kingpin in general because he touches so much in the Marvel Comics universe. Like he's, I've always thought of him as a Daredevil villain, but he's kind of like Doctor Doom in that. You think of Doom as a Fantastic Four villain, but he's a big Avengers villain, and Kingpin is a villain to so many different characters, not just Daredevil or Spider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's like the street level.
Yeah,
bad guy, main bad guy.
I mean, similar to you, but Kingpin to me has always been a Spider-Man villain because that's who I was most into growing up is Spider-Man. So I always saw he and Spider-Man going back and forth. Yeah. And I think that's my biggest concern, I guess, is that I don't feel like we'll see Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin against Spider-Man because he's been so taken into this universe. And that's what I really want. Because I have such an issue with how they've been doing Spider-Man for the last 8 movies or whatever it is it's at now, because I'm so tired of high school Spider-Man. There's so many years of Spider-Man that they can go off of where he's not in high school.
Yeah, in the comics, he has not been in high school since the 70s. So why do we keep getting high school Peter Parker?
Because for some reason the industry looks at it as the way to get young kids into the movies or all that, and young kids don't care. They're into whatever they're into.
Yeah, they don't know shit.
Captain America, Hulk. Who cares?
Superman is not in high school, and
no,
people love Superman. Batman is a CEO of a big tech company. The kids don't care about that part. They want to see Spider-Man doing cool stuff.
Well, they keep like rebooting him, doing an origin story on him over and over and over again
because they keep wanting him to be young, and I don't get it. There's so many more interesting things he can do.
One of the things that I thought when the cinematic universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, was getting going, and I think the first couple of actor changes were Rhodey and Bruce Banner, and I was like, they could honestly go on if they treat this like the comic books, they could go on forever, because comic books get new artists, new editors, new all kinds of stuff. I'm totally fine with replacing actors as they go along and make these characters kind of the immortals that they are in the books, because really you're just telling stories, I mean, why not? And they didn't have that kind of foresight, but these aren't comic book fans. They're Hollywood people, and they're disconnected from the reality.
Well, hey, You know what? Hey, in all fairness, Nick Fury went from David Hasselhoff to Samuel L. Jackson.
That's true. That's true. And here's the thing.
I saw that terrible movie.
So
I watched the whole thing.
So the original Nick Fury from the comic books was actually based off of Errol Flynn, who, you know, like everybody knew him as the big action hero of his time and things like that. And then when Marvel was coming up with the Ultimate Universe, they were like, well, I think we need to update Nick Fury. You know, who would you say is like the end all be all badass of now? And they pretty much the artist on the Ultimates was like, yeah, I'm gonna draw him like Sam Jackson, and they didn't get sued, which was crazy. And Sam Jackson was like, I like this idea, you know. And I mean, I do look at it as tokenization, but you know, like I don't think that their motive was you know, like tokenization for tokenization's sake. I think it was more of, hey, who's a more relevant action hero for now, you know?
Well, I mean, to me, he's a perfect character to be able to change the race on and do all that shit on, because he's a gray man. You don't know his background, really. You don't know who he was previously. There's not a whole lot on that. He's just the gray man. He's the guy there who is organizing all this stuff and sometimes does pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of wish the Marvel Universe, before we move on, number one, I wish they kind of do what they do with like the Joker and Batman and kind of make other stories outside the universe.
no.
And I wish DC would do something other than Batman. Number two, the Marvel Universe has gotten so uninteresting. I don't care about the Marvels. I don't care about Echo. Like, I'm not looking forward to anything. We'll see where the Thunderbolts go, I guess.
It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be so bad.
Like,
those aren't even most of those characters aren't even the real Thunderbolts. I mean, it's kind of irritating. I'm like,
right, like, where's the Red Hulk? Where's you know,
new Mach 4 and Songbird, and you know, I'm like, come on.
I just wanted to point out, I'm just don't like I don't know where Marvel Universe is going. I know Fantastic Four and X-Men. I just don't I don't think they know what they're doing right now.
Honestly, I think they do. I think that they hate their viewers. I think that they hate these characters because you cannot screw up this bad on accident. You know, at some point, some executive goes, how many billions have we lost? You're all fired, you know? But there seems to be some sort of an agenda going on.
I'm not even mad at them. I'm bored by them.
Yeah. You know,
I think they're boring.
Well, and that's why I love the indie space, because we're just creating new stuff. You know, it's interesting. It's cool. You're getting better quality. I mean, everything. You know, not just story wise, but you're getting better quality art. The physical books themselves have a higher grade paper. You know, like everything, and you're so connected to the creators. I mean, the editor on my book, Mark Polton, he used to work for DC and Image, and he was the writer for Savage Hawkman, and you know, and he's doing his own thing now. This guy has put out 20 independent books in the last 6 years, I think, somewhere around there. You know, and they're fantastic. Like, you know, it's the stuff that I grew up. I mean, the style of story and art and everything that I grew up with in the 90s. You know, it's just fun, crazy stuff.
Nice.
Sweet. All right, moving on here. The last thing we're going to do today is talk about our topic, which is Star Wars. Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. I'm going to find that clip and I'm going to put it right there. It's going to be beautiful. And if I didn't, I hope you enjoyed that. But we have a lot to talk about with Star Wars. We have not really touched on Star Wars too much, surprisingly, in our previous episodes, a little bit here and there. And I think Rick wanted to talk about our first experience with Star Wars. And I'm going to let him go first.
Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about, like, what was, like, the first time you seen it, or like, what did you think? What did you feel? And I remember I was living in a little house. My parents were poor in Wilmington, Illinois, in a little apartment. And I remember my first experience. The first thing I seen was Luke running with Yoda on his back through the swamp. And I was quite intrigued by the puppetry. As you guys know, I love 80s. I love sci-fi fantasy of the 80s. I love the puppetry of the 80s. And I think that was probably the beginning of my fascination with the puppetry of late 70s and 80s. And I remember being very excited and joyful watching that for the first time. And so my first experience was watching Yoda train Luke on Dagobah.
Well, Rick, you talk a lot about puppets. I'm just curious, do you use puppets in your therapy for people?
Do you suck a lot of dick?
Is that like, does a bear shit in the woods?
Yeah.
I can just see him holding up a little puppet and just being like, so tell me, what are you thinking about today? Are you doing okay? Any negative thoughts?
How do you think, Mr. Head?
Oh no, he's pulling out Socko again. I have a little sock puppet.
It's kind of crispy, but
Oh, man.
Why does your sock puppet make that crinkling noise?
Where did you pull that out of?
Because I masturbate into it. Get it?
Yeah,
Well, if I'm
Star Wars was, so many of our childhoods. Like Rick, I think my earliest memories were also of Luke running around with Yoda. I mean, grew up poor as well. Had a VHS of all three movies. Several VHSs of all three movies, but
yep.
We didn't buy them. We recorded them off the TV. You had to jump up and hit the stop.
The two buttons.
Yeah, whenever the commercial came on, and you always got like the first second of the commercial, and then back to the movie. But and that's the thing, and it as long as Lucas had it, it was ever expanding. It was ever interesting. I was super into the books. I read probably 30, 35 of the Lucas era books, and I've read 4 of the Disney era books, and I'm done with that. And that's, I think a lot of people's like, when did Star Wars get bad? What the hell happened? And
well, let's keep it on the first question first, then we're moving.
Oh yeah,
yeah, we're gonna talk about when it got bad. But I couldn't tell you the first time I saw the movie. I've been watching it since I can remember. Before I can remember, obviously. I love the original trilogy. Growing up, Luke was a badass, Han was a badass, Leia was a badass. You had your 3 right there. Chewbacca was in there somewhere too. But you're watching the trilogy and it's clearly defined good and evil. And, growing up, I love that, reading comics, good and evil, everything was clearly defined. And I was a big fan of the books too. I read the Jedi Academy books. I read
those are good.
They were very good. They were very good. I read the Timothy Zahn books, which I was blown away that when they made the sequels, they didn't follow them at all because they were just so fucking good. And I couldn't tell you what my first experience was, but I remember on Super Nintendo, I had the Return of the Jedi game, and I played the shit out of that one. I played the Battlefront games. I played a lot of Star Wars. I had the Star Wars toys. Like my mom used to like reward us for doing our chores by letting us pick out a Star Wars toy. She would have a bunch of them in her closet. We would, do our chores for the week, and she would say, "Cool, you get to pick one." And I had, tons of the characters. I had Lando. I had Han. Multiple versions of Luke. Multiple versions of Vader. And I had the little Millennium Falcon that opened up with the little minifigs inside, which I found out lately what that thing is worth probably about 10 grand. Unfortunately, I lost all the pieces, but I think it is around my house somewhere. So I'm going to go find that, pay off some credit card debt. But yeah, it was just a huge part of my childhood growing up. We played Star Wars. I had the lightsaber toy that extended, and I'd fight my brother and whack him in the face with it. It was, everything was about Star Wars when I was a kid.
So for me, I was probably 7 when I first saw A New Hope, and it was my parents decided, hey, we're going to show you Star Wars. And it might have been because I found some Star Wars toys that they had. They had some original Star Wars toys, and they've still got them in their basement somewhere. I played with those. My brothers played with those, beat the shit out of them. We had the original Millennium Falcon. All this stuff. And I think I sat down and watched A New Hope, and then went on to complete the trilogy. And I think, let's see, the first game I played was Rogue Squadron.
Hell yeah.
Loved that game. Was a great game. Now, unlike the rest of y'all, the only book that I've read is Death Troopers. And I love that book. Fantastic. But I've never read it. I've only ever listened to the Audible version of it. And the dude that narrates it does an amazing job of hitting all of the different voices and doing a fantastic job. So if you haven't listened to it, listen to it on Audible. I highly recommend that.
Yeah. I did read the Shadows of the Empire comic book when they had that come out. That was a good one. And I played the game on Nintendo 64.
Shizor, man.
Shizor, yep. Dash Rendar. Such a good storyline that I'm really surprised they haven't touched, and I hope they really don't touch, honestly, with the way things have been going. But yeah, that one was fantastic. But yeah, Rogue Squadron, that was my shit.
Mm-hmm.
I love that game.
Trench Run.
The Trench Run was awesome.
It's great.
And every Rogue Squadron game had the Trench Run. It didn't matter. They were like, we don't give a shit if we did in the last one. We're going to do it again.
That's right.
Yep.
If you have a Star Wars fighter pilot game, it has the Trench Run. X-Wing had it, which X-Wing was a big one. I used to play a lot of X-Wing versus TIE Fighter too. But anytime you did the Trench Run, it was just so awesome. No matter what game you were playing.
And what was the other one on 64? Was it like, I want to say like Shadows of the Empire, but I don't.
Yeah, it was Shadows. Yeah, Shadows of the Empire.
Okay. Yeah,
we brought it up. We brought it up like 5 minutes ago. No big deal.
I missed it. Sorry.
We lose Sam sometimes. He gets very bored with us.
My
deep, low, soothing voice puts him to sleep.
Of the three of y'all that were in the military, I might be the only one with the 5,000-hour stare.
Yeah. I have severe ADD, so it's okay. Cool. And we can talk about our favorite Star Wars movies.
It's also like 8 degrees in my garage right now, so
that's fair.
I mean, you say we can talk about our favorite Star Wars movies. All of us are going to say Empire, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's so phenomenal. Like here's a reason why Empire sticks out. Is a New Hope is like an introduction. You're filled with awe. You're filled with, you're like, oh wow, and it has this happy ending. But Empire is just like, oh no, oh no, oh no. Like you're edge of your seat, almost the whole movie. Like, is Luke gonna make it to his friends on time? Oh my goodness, he's facing Vader for the first time, like he got his hand chopped off. I mean, it's just, who's this Boba Fett guy? Like, I mean, it's that whole movie is just like boom, boom, boom. It's wild.
But it's peak storytelling, though.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a character that you think is not going to live. You think's going to die. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, that's why you're at the edge of your seat. And I know moving forward, but that's why other movies these days don't work the way they should. And Empire is probably, like I said, probably peak storytelling. The way an action story, like when I talk about what a good story is, Empire is that story.
Yeah.
Through and through.
Yeah. Well, you go through the hero's journey and but you also, you learn a little bit more about Vader, who, like in A New Hope, Vader is this very intriguing character. Everybody wants to know, like, man, who is this guy underneath all this armor? Like, what's his story? And then you find out in the second one, oh, he's Luke's dad. Like, what? And what is, so who is this guy? And how did this happen to him? And that's, I think that's what makes Empire just this timeless, amazing film.
Absolutely. And, that whole thing, like, I wish I was, alive at that time in the theater watching this and being able to understand it when Vader tells Luke that he's his father. Like, I can't even imagine what the audience thought, because it was already a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Star Wars was already a phenomenon. So all these people came to the theater to watch Luke do battle with this guy, find out it's his goddamn dad. Spoiler alert. Yeah. You haven't seen the movie from the 80s, you're fucked.
Man, you ruined it.
God damn it.
Are you
It is. It's such a good movie, and the story is so well told. And the best part is the three main characters from the first one have almost no screen time together, which is what's really interesting. They have about 5 minutes of screen time together. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's close to that. And they told the story just, and it was just a good story. And it was something that we haven't gotten from Star Wars since. Even Return of the Jedi was,
remember that Star Wars is a story about a religious fundamentalist that fights against the government.
Right.
Yeah.
But
well, kind of. I've got a whole rant about that coming up, so stay tuned.
Oh,
I have an issue with the original trilogy, and it's that A New Hope is the worst of the trilogy, in my opinion. And I base this off of the fact that I've tried to get my wife to watch the original trilogy. We didn't make it through A New Hope, and then we decided to watch the extended edition of Lord of the Rings, and she sat down and watched all of that with me, but we couldn't make it through A New Hope. Like, once you get past that, it's just setting up the scene. It's setting up everything that we know about Star Wars at that point, but it is slow. It is a slow start. I love it. I love it, but it couldn't drag my wife into it.
Really, until they break Leia out of prison, like there's very little action.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite section of all the movies is the whole saga with Jabba, from beginning to end, with Luke using his powers, showing that he's improved his use of the Force, and then what I find very interesting was when they kill the Rancor, and what do they call the pig people? What's the pig people? It's called
Orions.
the
Morian guards. Yeah,
where he's crying, and he's sympathetic to the Rancor, and it kind of reminds me of like Godzilla being a monster, but like Godzilla don't know what he's doing. He's not trying to kill people. He's just like he's not like an evil being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's just following instinct. And like a monster's not just like it's not like a violent thing. They're just following instinct. And so I just thought there's just layers to that part where I just felt bad just watching him cry for the Rancor there. That like
taking care of
they
his
were
pet,
friends with that creature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fuck
And
that Rancor.
then you got Leia wearing
the Rancors always look like poop to me.
Well,
poop with teeth.
Yeah. Poop
and big hands.
Big hand poop teeth.
Yeah. Well, Princess Leia in Return of the Jedi obviously was where everybody discovered what their sexuality was.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, Leia's wearing slave costumes.
Yep.
Like, if you're giving highlights on that movie and you don't mention that, I know you're gay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure me and Leia's collector's card had some very intimate moments when I was about.
It's very ruined.
Whatever. You were in the
There's no resale value on that one anymore.
He is pansexual or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you just make up words, you know.
Let me finish about the original Star Wars, because my final thought on that is that the original trilogy offered up something to us that was just so amazing. And it was a new world. It was a whole new world for us, a whole new galaxy that left us wanting to hear more, wanting to know more. We learned about the Jedi. We all wanted to be Jedi. It was, we were so excited for it. We wanted to be a smuggler. We wanted to be these characters. And that first series of movies created that for us, which will bring us into our next topic.
Well, I do remember wanting to know and see more about Boba Fett.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And now that we get to see more about it, I don't care as much.
Yeah.
Disney is not canon. It's
So,
just bad
anyways.
fan fiction.
I like The Mandalorian. I will continue watching that.
I like the first 2 seasons.
I liked it before they got rid of Gina Carano.
They have a movie coming out. They have
and
a movie coming out soon for The Mandalorian.
I was
Not coming out soon, but it's coming.
I was very excited for the 3rd season because I'm a big Bo-Katan fan. And I mean, like her story arc through both Clone Wars and Rebels was just awesome. And I was not a fan of that season, but hey.
I still like it. Anything with The Mandalorians. Big fan since Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh yeah.
I like Tamora Morrison, and I guess I haven't hated it too much, but Adam, prequels and sequels.
Yes. So, as I was mentioning, the original trilogy brought us all these brand new concepts, all this fun, exciting new ideas of like the Jedi. Who are the Jedi? Oh, there was a time where the Jedi numbered in the thousands. We want to see this. The prequels come out and show us that the Jedi were a bunch of assholes and deservedly got wiped out. They are the worst thing for the galaxy. The original trilogy brought in this whole concept that the Empire were basically space Nazis, right? That's what we all believe. They were called stormtroopers. Okay, there was plenty of parallels, and we were like, they're the bad guys, they're the space Nazis. Well, now you go into the prequels, and you find out that the Jedi, who were kind of talked about like they were the Jews of World War II, were actually super assholes. All of them. Every single one of them. And they changed the whole thing. What actually ended up happening was the Empire was good for the galaxy, and that ruins everything going into the original trilogy. And If you don't believe me, I've got some evidence. First of all, okay, let's talk about how the Jedi basically couldn't figure out that there was a Sith Lord taking power in the Republic. Like, they're like, oh, I feel a dark presence and all this with like planets away. And all of a sudden they can't figure out that the biggest Sith Lord ever is fucking sitting in the goddamn presidential chair. Like, okay, so you guys are completely ignoring that. Second of all, you're sitting there saying, oh, you should not have any type of attachments to anybody or anything. Well, fuck that. That's just going to cause a revolt. And they are Jedi Masters of none. Okay. They're sitting there. What are they? They're peacekeepers. They're supposed to be peacekeepers. In Phantom Menace, they go to Naboo to try to negotiate this whole thing with the Trade Federation. And what ends up happening is they end up getting into a big fight with them, basically creating this war. They've done absolutely nothing to help any of it. They were not neutral parties. And then they basically do nothing the rest of the time. But then in later movies, they're basically detectives. They're jacks of all trade, but again, Jedi Masters of none. Like, they've done nothing to help the galaxy. Tatooine still has slavery. Okay, we find that out in the prequels. Once the Empire takes over, is there slavery on Tatooine anymore? Nope. The Empire was all about peace and order. Okay, and I know I'm arguing for the Empire right now, but if you look at how bad things were in the prequels, and then you go back to the original trilogy, things were so much better for the galaxy, and the Empire was only killing rebels.
I think that
the rebels were the ones being the assholes.
I think that there are a lot of Wookiees that would disagree with you on the slavery thing.
Nobody cares about those dogmen people.
I think I get what you're saying, because I definitely agree that the Jedi they were so impotent in the prequels, and
they were idiots.
But I also get what Lucas was kind of saying was that their own kind of hubris caused them to be blind to. I mean, we see it in the real world. How many times, I'm sure that there were people in Germany that were like, wait a minute, how did we get here in 1938? And it's a story of just how hubris blinds you and makes you cause an entire republic to fall.
But you know what? The Empire was just so much better for the galaxy. And you realize that. But you're sold the story in the original trilogy that they're the bad guys. But they never talk about what the Empire really does that makes them the bad guys. Okay, they've got a planet-destroying weapon. Got it. Okay, big deal. Who do they use it on? The rebels. That's it. That's the only time they ever used it was on the rebels. Yes, granted, they never really had a chance to use it to do anything else. But, I mean, they weren't sitting there trying to attack normal people. They just wanted peace and order in the galaxy. Even in in Chancellor Palpatine, in Emperor Palpatine's speech, he says, we're going to bring order to the galaxy. So he saw there was something wrong. And there was something wrong. The Republic was doing jack shit the whole time. So why the hell not have somebody come and be like, hey, let's go and fix things. This guy's like, let's fix it. Let's save the galaxy right now. You and me together. Let's do this. You know what? It's going to be a monarchy, but it is what it is. We're going to fix this. And they did. They fixed it.
Now,
they wanted peace and order so long as you did exactly what they told you were allowed to do. They wanted peace and order. Because it was the best for the people in power.
They were an empire of law.
Why do you think smuggling was such a big thing? That's what we learned in the 1920s in America. That if you make something illegal, people will go out of their way to do it anyway.
It was an empire of law. You follow the law, you never had problems with the empire. And I don't think any of their laws were crazy. Don't keep slaves. That was a big one.
Well, there was that whole Palpatine Palpatine had a rule that only humans could be stormtroopers. He wouldn't allow any other races to be stormtroopers, and most officers too. Thrawn was kind of the exception. Whether you're going with old canon or new,
To be fair, my headcanon on that is because they made one type of armor and they weren't gonna create another type of armor for every kind of alien.
Yeah,
so they were just like, all right, if you can fit in the armor, it's only you is gonna be stormtroopers. That's my headcanon, at least.
And maybe the prequels were really about the fall of the Jedi, and I will give it that. Maybe this really was just about the fall, and I don't just mean them getting wiped out. I mean the fall of what they believed was right. I mean it's like any religion, really. You start to get too crazy with your little cult, and eventually you get to a point where you're having a shootout in Waco. Okay,
hey now,
and yeah,
I was there. I don't know. I've watched a lot of shows on it.
My biggest issue with the prequels is really the fact, and it goes into Clone Wars too, is really the fact that apparently the Jedi think that the only people that can handle things are freaking Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Because they are.
Because they send them like across the galaxy all the time just to deal with some little thing here and there. When you've got Plo Koon, you've got all these other great freaking Jedi that obviously have the background because they're all masters that we follow in Clone Wars that could obviously deal with this stuff. But no, it's got to be Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Well, the Jedi are ostensibly bad at their jobs. That's why
they are. And if you've ever read the book, was it Cloak of Deception? So it happens before episode 1. It's kind of a lead up. It's more of a political intrigue type story. It's Palpatine is moving the pieces around. He's doing all this behind the scenes stuff to set up the coming story arcs. And you kind of find out that ever since Bane instituted the rule of 2, that has been the number one focus of the Sith, is to make the Jedi believe that there is no more danger, and that they are the king of the galaxy, and they can and build that hubris up so that they will fail in the end. And it's just they were playing the long game.
Well, and the best point I'll give of how much the Jedi suck is if you play any video game where you can be a Jedi and choose between being a Jedi and a Sith Lord, it is always more fun to play as the Sith Lord. Always more fun. Their powers are better. You can basically do whatever you want. And
you get to use lightning.
You get to use Force lightning.
Yeah, you do.
I remember playing Jedi Knight 2. I remember playing Jedi Knight 2, and I used to fuck my friend up every time because when we play on the Death Star, and we'd go meet on a bridge, and I would just grab him with a force choke and hold him over a pit and drop him. That was what I would do every single time. Like no mercy whatsoever. It is so much better. And just, they're completely blind to corruption. They're doing absolutely nothing for the Republic. They should die. But this makes me even more upset going later on into what we know now with the sequels, where Luke had a chance to bring the Jedi Order back to its origins, to make them strong, to make them better people. And he completely fucks that up himself. And that pissed me off. I don't blame Luke. I blame Disney and Kathleen Kennedy because she sucks.
It's their bad fan fiction.
Yeah.
It's just so, like, in my head, when I saw Luke, I was like, when I saw that they were having sequels, I'm like, Luke's created a new Jedi Order. He's creating all the new Jedi. He's doing this thing and he's doing it right. And then they just completely shut it down by being like, I'm going to murder my nephew because he had a bad dream.
Which makes no sense whatsoever. Luke saved his father. He saved his father, who was the worst Sith that
He
we've
was
seen
Space
in the
Hitler.
movies. Yes, and he saved him. Why would he choose to kill his nephew? It makes no sense whatsoever.
He was gonna murder his nephew in his sleep.
Yeah. But
What
what
happened?
terrible writing. That's what happened. Terrible
And he
writing.
drank
No.
some weird milk.
Yeah.
Alien movie.
Show him getting the
Drinking
fucking getting it out of the
blue
nipple.
milk, man.
Don't understand.
Straight out the teat.
But Babu Frick was freaking awesome.
Sure.
Okay.
I just like I had said earlier, when did Star Wars get bad? Because it wasn't with the initial Disney purchase. When the initial Disney purchase happened, there was this small window where if you were into the comics and the books, the canon was damn near non-existent. I mean, it was all over the place. Everything had been stepped on, and Disney goes in and is like, okay, we're going to clean this up. And they were doing a pretty good job of it. I would say the 2 seasons of Clone Wars that came out after Disney's purchase were fantastic. I liked the first 3 seasons of Rebels. The 4th season got a little weird and like not Star Warsy with that whole in between worlds place, and I was like, "What the hell is going on?" And so I would say, right around that time was when it was like, okay, and then you get episode 7, and it was like, oh yeah, this is kind of it, like. This is
now, and I felt like, so when I saw The Force Awakens, I thought it was a return to form for Star Wars. I actually enjoyed that movie. I thought it was good.
It's basically A New Hope.
Yeah, it was, but I felt like it was a fairly well told movie, all around. And then they got into The Last Jedi, and I was like, nope. I was like, this destroys everything that this first movie was setting up. There was no communication on it. I genuinely, I enjoyed The Force Awakens, but I think it also got ruined by the next 2 movies.
Yeah.
I think Rey was such an awful character from the get-go. That is what, like, I was intrigued by Kylo Ren, and I know a lot of people.
Right. Yes.
A lot of people were complaining about how whiny he was, and I was like, "Hello, did you watch the prequels? Anakin whines constantly. This is what
and so
happens.
does Luke.
Right,
but it was a unique character,
and what that was with Kylo was, this is what happens when you don't have the Jedi training to not unleash your temper tantrums.
But he reminded me of like an 80s bully.
Yeah.
And the thing that ruined Star Wars was when they switched directors, and that director decided he didn't like what Abrams was doing, and totally ruined everything that Abrams set up.
Honestly,
just flushed it all down the toilet.
Honestly, I think all of that was Kathleen Kennedy. I think ultimately, like, it was all.
But what's his name? What was the director's name?
Rian Johnson, I think, was the one that did. But
he totally told fans to go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Well, that's
like, he literally told fans, "Suck my dick," on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, those were his exact words. When fans said, "Hey, this sucks," he said, "My dick."
Yeah.
That was his words.
Yeah.
And with that, the hate for Star Wars got even stronger with his bad attitude.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, it really fell apart. There was no real plan. I don't think it wasn't like, hey, this is the story. This is what we're doing. Make it unique, make it look good. Like, let's go from here. I am hopeful with Dave Filoni taking over now as the creative director that things will start to move in a more positive direction and bring us back to form. I know that they are doing a High Republic movie series, which I'm looking forward to because I love the High Republic storylines. Hopefully that it's good. The Knights of the Old Republic, the Old Republic MMO, those were great games to play. I've read some of the books. They've been very good. I think it's something that they could do that's new and exciting.
And another thing, John Boyega's character, Finn, had a very interesting story arc. He was this...
Until that last freaking movie.
At the beginning he did, and then they were just like, oh, fuck this
they've
guy.
Never,
and you're like, what?
Like in Star Wars that I've seen, like I never read all the books. I'm a Star Wars schmuck. I've always watched it, always loved it. I'm not like huge. I'm the guy that's like, what do you call the pig characters? But like you never got to know a stormtrooper in the past movies.
No.
And this was a guy that deflected and became part of the crew, and they didn't like really get into his backstory. It was just this low-hanging fruit of a character that they did not like. They could have really opened up, and they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not like throughout the whole series, they didn't like get into Finn's character at all. They did not build and get into his past as much as they should have.
Well, that's the thing is like, and here's why I think they do it on purpose. I think they want to ruin this stuff for all of us, because what they'll do is they'll throw in...
Sam, I used that phrase right. All right, I saw your face. I used that phrase right, you son of a bitch.
It is not deflected. It is defected.
Oh, I thought you were talking about low-hanging fruit.
No. You said he deflected from the stormtroopers. He defected from the stormtroopers.
No, I said defected. You're
no, you
wrong.
Didn't. No, you didn't.
Bitch.
I heard deflected, so...
Well, you're all fucking dead.
The three of us that were listening to you are wrong. You're 100% right.
I stopped paying attention 5 minutes ago, but I'm good. I'm back.
I'm going to say something not woke. Adam, cut this out. Mark this here. You're all faggots. All right. Go ahead, Chris.
We've got it on video. He is canceled.
There you go. No, like they'll throw you a bone every once in a while. You'll get Rogue One, and it'd be like,
Rogue One was fantastic.
Absolutely,
that was a good movie,
and it draws.
Oh my
it
gosh.
draws the fans back. They're like, all the fans are excited because they're like, yes, we, this is Star Wars right here, and then they're like, all right, now here we go with some
and not like. If they want a strong female character, that's how they do it. That's how you do it. She was fantastic in that movie. It was such a good movie, such a well-told story. I don't know how they go from that to Rey. Rey made no sense.
No, none whatsoever. And it was just, you can't just all of a sudden,
but she was such a great actress.
She does a Jedi mind trick in the first freaking film. With no training whatsoever. There's like any Star Wars fan is like, no. Like,
but she was a great actress, though. That's the thing. Like, she was perfect for the role, and she herself, as an actress, did a good job. The character was shit.
Yeah. And honestly, I wish a lot of these actors and actresses would read these scripts and be like, I'm just not doing this. Like, get somebody else, because this is shit. That's one of the things about after Daisy Ridley was done with the Disney Star Wars trilogy, she was complaining about not being able to get a job. Well, if she knew anything about Star Wars, she would know that if you take on the role as the main character in Star Wars, you are forever cursed. You don't get any more jobs in major film. You get to go into voice acting.
Yeah. Mark Hamill, what a good voice actor, though.
Man, just
so
fantastic.
Mark Hamill did some stuff.
It feels like we're
Did a lot
winding
of
down on the Star Wars commentary here. Before we get away from it, before we finish out, wherever we're going now, what colored lightsaber would each of you have?
Purple.
Green.
Blue.
I'm thinking orange or white.
White would be a good one, but
You know,
So how about pink?
speaking of colors, there is a whole storyline that they have not explored in the movies at all yet, which is about the gray Jedi, who are not light.
Yep.
They're not dark. They're somewhere in the middle, and they are right. They're the ones who are right.
But they're not technically canon.
There are in the previous canon, the Lucas era canon, there was also a sect called the Paladins, and they would use
lame women.
They would use blasters as well as lightsabers, and they were actually more correct than the Jedi Order. There's actually, like, when you if you ever read the Knights of the Old Republic comic books, which is obviously, like, that's the it's before Revan goes bad, or whatever, but you kind of see it build up. Like you see, like, that era of Jedi is like all these different sects of Jedi that are just kind of loosely associated with each other, but and the rules are completely different. They're all into bloodlines and having children and keeping the Force strong and all that.
Yeah.
I always like that, because the way you see it in the movies is like, oh, there's just the Jedi Order. Well, in the old other stories, there's other Force using sects that aren't just Jedi. I mean, there's all kinds of different stuff, going on.
Yeah. Well, and I wish they would have kind of explore into some of that, because that could be really interesting stories there, and pointing out different points of view. I mean, it's kind of, we kind of got something like that with The Mandalorian, where you find out, hey, there's different groups of The Mandalorian that believe in different things, which was cool. It's like, that would be cool to explore with the Jedi a little bit. And you don't hear about them, any of these other Jedi sects in the prequels, which means, again, the Jedi were probably assholes, and we're like, no, fuck them, they're out.
Which the Mandalorians have some of my favorite lore of all of Star Wars, which is when they ended up fighting the Jedi a lot.
Oh yeah,
and Mandalorians who use blasters, and the Jedi kept deflecting their blaster shots, and the Mandalorians decided to go back to guns.
Yep.
So when the Jedi deflected their gunshots, it just shot hot lead into the Jedi's faces. That's my favorite piece of lore there. And once again, we are Spit Take Podcast. You can find us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Rumble. Anywhere you want to go, you will find Spit Take Podcast. We are Sam, Rick, Adam, with special guest Kris. And come on back next time. Rick, take us out.
Level up, guys!